in Dakar. You just put Liberty 6 Dakar. No, sorry, Liberty 6 prison, Dakar. And if you want to know more about this strike, you can speak to Gora. Can you stand up? Tu peux te lever? Lève-toi, lève-toi.
I think that tweet had a hashtag. Okay, so from now on, Victoria, would you join me up here? Okay. So this is our infrastructure for the conversation to follow. And I want to invite the next speaker to talk to us for a few minutes. And he was very passive on giving me any info on how he wanted to be presented. But I do know him personally, so I get to speak about that. What's wrong? I'm getting a finger wave. Oh, they want the address back up for a minute. Okay, thank you. Okay, so, and I'm talking about a friend who I went to the University for Peace with. We were both doing our masters at the same time. And he wore clown pants sometimes, and that totally freaked me out. But at the same time, I thought he was crazy enough that we would definitely get along. So we worked on the GAMUP Summit in Costa Rica, the fourth in 2009, I believe. 2008? 2009. 2009, thank you. And now he's here in Geneva, very passionate about learning the culture of peace. So I'd like to welcome Oliver Rizzi Carlson back up, and he'll speak with us.
Thank you. Whew. I'm feeling the weight of this wonderful food because I didn't have any food yesterday, and so having it today was like pretty intense. But I'm really grateful about that. So I'd like to share a little bit of my story and my journey, and why am I standing here with a t-shirt involved in this event? You know, how did I get involved in peace? Briefly, I grew up in a family of all women. There were my mother, my aunt, my two female cousins, my grandmother, and I was the only man in the family. And that was very painful because there was some kind of sort of patriarchal kind of mindset that they suffered from and that they passed on to everybody else around. And I was sort of the one who had to resolve the conflict, the one who had to defend people, you know, the one to go to, the one who had to do everything, run the errands and take care of my mother. And that was very difficult, and I became very aware of all of the violence that was happening in the family and other violence that I sensed as a child, you know, but I didn't know about. I still don't know about. And that led me to thinking a lot about peace and violence. And at the end of many years of reflection, somehow I had an intuition, you know, one of those moments where you go, oh my gosh, I had never thought about that before. And somehow I put together the idea of becoming aware with peace. And I told myself, how about peace education? And I Googled that. Thank you, Google. And the first result is Master of Arts in Peace Education at the UN-mandated University for Peace. And I said, what? Yeah, so that was the beginning of a journey which still continues. And it is a very exciting journey for me. In that journey, I've been able to sort of put a name to a lot of things that I had been sort of trying to think about, but I did not really have a way to define or to really understand. And what I would like to share with you today is just a few thoughts about that. One is that I think in this group, also from what I heard, you know, from the harvesting of the World Cafe, I feel that there is heightened awareness about the importance of education and peace. And I think that that step is a very important step that is not a given. You know, a lot of times when you think about peace, we talk about weapons, we talk about politics and economic sanctions, and you know how somehow we need to create the conditions to control others so that they can be good and they can act in ways that are good. And there's a kind of colonialism in that kind of mindset. But also, it's still, as Charles was saying in the open space session, it's still a mindset of using force for good. Actually, I believe that's the only reason we ever would use force. It's because we believe we have to do something to improve conditions. So shifting from that to understanding peace as a learning process is one step, and I think a very important one. And I would like everybody to realize how that is an evolution. Christophe was talking about evolution before in the peace movement, and I think it's important to recognize that, how we are learning about peace, you know, as a human population on the planet. Now, if you have processes of learning, and if they're geared towards actually developing culture, then you realize that that's not going to happen overnight. You know, you don't learn a language as soon as you're born and the next day you start speaking. It takes years, at least months. Anything we do really takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of practice, which is why we designed this event the way we designed it. You know, trying to create spaces where we could really practice empathy in the morning, where we could practice creating art in the art corner, and yesterday when you did the portraits, where we can practice you know, methods such as restorative systems and understand how we actually co-create them. But interacting is what I'm getting at. You know, actually having the experience of that is what really matters. So if we're to do this cultural change, you know, we need continuity over time. For that, we need the support. And that led me to think, okay, another step. We need structures that support that, you know, in a continual kind of way, so that we can really have a long-term vision and finally bring this idea of sustainability sort of, I don't know, I'm thinking of uprooting, but that's not what I mean. Sustainability associated with the environmental movement, you know, respecting the environment, being able to have the resources we need in the future for our energy needs and so on. But sustainability really, I think, is something we're understanding is very important in our social interactions too. They need to be sustainable. Our societies need to be sustainable. And we can develop systems to make them sustainable. So that's another step. Here we are. And for me, when I discovered GAMIP, which was after I finished my studies at the University for Peace, I wanted to create a center there for peace building. It didn't work out. But I had realized that there was a need for a structure that would support this. Then I discovered GAMIP, and one day I woke up during the summit in Costa Rica in 2009, and I told myself, oh, yeah, a structure. Yeah, this is what I was trying to do. Exactly. So that was wonderful. And since then, I kept thinking about it, and now I think, okay, so what is that structure going to do exactly? And this is something that for me is very important. I feel that that structure, it's not just about learning how to listen actively, learning how to express yourself in nonviolent ways. It's not just about learning about how to, I don't know, organize an event such as this one differently, you know, using the money system, a different money system maybe. But I really believe that if we're serious about sustainability of this learning, those structures need to hold within themselves the learning about designing infrastructures for peace. So I really believe it needs to be sort of a self-referential process, which brings me to cybernetics, and I'm not going to get into that. But it's very interesting then to see, you know, all the connections with chaos theory, systems theory, and all of that, because you realize, oh, you just have to, you know, if you look at the world in a different way, then you can really design things, you know. And I don't mean that we have power over the world and we can just design things and they will just happen. It's all an experiment. This event is an experiment. Peace is always an experiment. And I think it just simply takes the courage to take that step and see what happens. And for me in my life, that courage has always come from a deep sense of possibility, even in the face of a lot of obstacles that I've faced. And I feel like that sense of possibility is maybe something so essential. You know, we need to believe that we ourselves can design infrastructures, that we can keep tweaking them forever, you know. But that sense of agency is something that is very important for me. And I also, because Marie-Claire is here with her students from Collège Voltaire, which I'm very happy about. So I work with Marie-Claire, and we have some classes together. We do different activities in the Collège Voltaire, which is a school where we did the learning event this past weekend. And I tell people who know me know this. Those things are the ones that are most meaningful for me. Because when I organize an event and I write emails and, you know, it's tiring. It's exciting. You know, I'm really happy we're all here. But what I really enjoy is actually being with people and actually having these conversations, just like I'm doing now and we'll keep doing later on. And so for me, I want to tell you just one story, which is I was at the Collège Voltaire the other day, and it was in another class with a Spanish teacher. It was all in Spanish. And they were reading a book written by somebody called Gladys Ambort, who actually might come on Thursday, so you might meet her. She was tortured by the Argentinian dictatorship when she was, you know, in her early teens. She wrote a book about that experience. They're reading that. And in the class, we were talking about this reading that they were doing and talking about the state structure and what happened during the dictatorship and peace and so on. And we were not very far into it. And, you know, I was eliciting comments from people, and this girl said, you know, the problem is we don't have structures for caring. And I said, wow, you know, yeah. And so I'm amazed at how the youth have such an intuition. It's just, this is what I feel, you know, which is why I'm very proud and I'm very excited to represent the United Network of Young Peacebuilders at the UN here in Geneva. And we have some members here, too. And I'm very glad that there are lots of youth here, because I really believe that there's so much that we can contribute to peace. So that agency and that sense of possibility is something that I hope you will always find support in your life to feel. You always find the support in your life to feel that sense of agency and possibility, because that is sort of the root of, I feel, you know, a continual development which will go on, and there will be many things I cannot even think about right now beyond infrastructures for peace. But for me right now, what I'm seeing on the horizon is amazing designs coming out of that sense of possibility. And so I hope that during this week and also in your work, wherever you go back to, and as you network here and you develop collaborations, that you really feel that ability to design and redesign systems that support dialogue, that support listening, that support understanding and learning about peace. So there's one last thing, which is I'm saying that learning about peace because I believe that when we talk about root causes of violence, I disagree with that. I don't think there are root causes of violence. I think there is one cause. The only cause of violence, I think, is the fact that we do not learn how to express ourselves, how to listen. And if we only had those structures that helped us do that, there would be no violence. We can just, you know, it's just an ability to find other solutions. So I'm just so excited to see what's going to happen next after this event in the world, you know, because I feel it's an exponentially growing process in terms of the development of infrastructures for peace. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. You can hold on to that one.
Okay.
You just turn it off. but come join us up here. Okay, who has a tweet for Oliver? Anyone? Reflections? Quick comment? Someone say yeah? Here?
It's true that when we work with young people, we have noticed that it's in them already, that potential that you're talking about. It's just a matter of creating an environment, a terrain in French, you know, a fertile soil for that to come out. But we've seen it happen. We had one young boy called Emilio, after doing Forum Theater. He wrote that he had discovered feelings inside himself that he had never even known existed. And then his mother came and told me that when she read those words that he had written, that she had tears in her eyes. So I think that just kind of encapsulates what you were talking about, you know? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. One last tweet. Here.
Delia Mamo, who was here this morning, I don't know if she's still there, said once, I heard her say, there's only two sorts of people regarding peace. Those who already know about it, and those who need to understand. But both of them need to learn.
I like that. That should be an actual tweet.
Please tweet that.
Please tweet that. Okay, and our third speaker before we move into the panel activity is Charles Eisenstein, and some of us may have had a chance to participate in his open source contribution today called The War on Evil. And I didn't realize it until I was just sitting up with Victoria up there, that the connection with UPeace is also there with Charles, even though he doesn't know it yet. Because at UPeace there's a course in economics and the pursuit of happiness. And that was the first opportunity through taking that course that I was introduced to Charles' work and reading the book Sacred Economics. I don't know if anyone here has read that book. Maybe, show of hands, a few of us. Yeah. So that's my connection, and since then have followed Charles' work on his blog with the issue of the new story of the people, which I'm hoping he'll speak to us a little bit about today, if not now, then in our panel discussion. So welcome, Charles.
Thank you.